Welcome to the Book Boyfriend podcast, where we dish on everything from the alpha male to the sensitive soul. If you found yourself lusting after a fictional character, you've come to the right place. Here's your hosts, Faith Andrews, Elizabeth Grace, Livia Jamerland, and B.A. Wolf.
Hey guys, happy spring. Well, almost spring in the case of us New Yorkers. It's March and it's still freezing here, but in any event, happy spring, happy March Madness. I don't know if you guys have been following, but we've decided to pick a couple of March releases this month and focus on them two at a time. And surprise, surprise, one of my picks was Confess by Colleen Hoover, which released in the beginning of March, actually on my daughter's birthday. And I'm a huge Coho fan, so none of the girls were pretty shocked that this was like my first pick. So just get right into things because it's a little different without the other girls bantering back and forth with me. I don't want to make it too boring for you guys. Let's get right into it. Okay, so I'll read the blurb of the book, even though in my own opinion, I honestly think that the blurb had zero zilch nothing to do with this book. So, okay. At age 21, Auburn Reed has already lost everything important to her. In her fight to rebuild her shattered life, she has her goals in sight and there is no room for mistakes. But when she walks into a Dallas art studio in search of a job, she doesn't expect to find a deep attraction to the enigmatic artist who works there, Owen Gentry. For once, Auburn takes a chance and puts her heart in control, only to discover that Owen is keeping a major secret from coming out. The magnitude of his past threatens to destroy everything important to Auburn, and the only way to get her life back on track is to cut Owen out of it. To save their relationship, all Owen needs to do is confess, but in this case, the confession could be much more destructive than the actual sin. Okay, right off the bat, I'm just going to tell you, I honestly am not a blurb reader, and when it comes to Coho, she's an instant one-click for me, so I did not read this blurb. And later on, I read the blurb as I was writing it for this podcast and noticed that, to me, didn't sum up the book at all. So if you're not sold yet, good. You still have a chance to be sold. Okay, I'm going to give you a brief summary of the book. Like I've said before, you want a confession from me, huge confession, Coho fangirl. I'd read anything. She could put out the phone book and sign her name on it, and it's for me. She's my instant one click. So while that was this definitely wasn't one of my favorite of hers, I still think she's a genius. I don't want to give way too much away because there are definitely quirks and intricate things that you'll learn as you read the book. But I honestly think this was another one of a genius masterpieces from her. And since we're doing Book Boyfriend podcast, I'm going to focus on the main character, the main male character, who is Owen Mason Gentry. And as the main character, the main female character recognizes, his initials are OMG. And I thought that was another quirky little funny thing. And it's actually pretty fitting because there were so many times where he would say something and I was like, oh my God, this guy is just too good to be true. Okay, the prologue tore my heart out. 3% in, I was already on Goodreads typing part of a review. Holy crap. 3% in, I was in love. I was already immersed in a world that only she can create. And then we're 5 years into the future. And it's being told through Auburn's point of view. And we're getting a glimpse of her and knowing that she's kind of a flawed character. We know that from the prologue. Again, I don't want to give too much away, but she goes through a bit of a heartache at the age of 15. And we don't find out exactly that there's something holding on to the past for her, but right away. But then when she bumps into Owen, it's kind of this coincidental thing. She's looking for a job. She's starting fresh in this new state away from home, and she is looking for an extra job way to make money. And sure enough, she walks past Owen's studio, and outside on this I'm picturing like a New York, underneath the scaffolding with all these papers on this outside windows. And next to this help wanted sign, she finds these countless anonymous confessions that are taped up there. One of them that grabbed me. Every day I'm grateful that my husband and his brother look exactly alike. It means there's less of a chance that my husband will find out their son isn't his. Wow. And then the next one that grabbed me too was, I'm scared I'll never stop comparing my life without him to how my life was when I was with him. Quick background, just from being a Coho crazy, I found out that these confessions were real confessions that she had people write into her. So again, genius. Who thinks of things like this? So if you're not intrigued already, you're literally like 10% in, 5% in, something like that. In walks Owen. And you find out that he uses these confessions as inspiration. He's an artist. He paints the confessions. He opens up his gallery to the public, and people pay him really freaking good money for this art. Again, another genius aspect to Colleen Hoover. Not only are you reading these confessions, reading a Coho book, she has an artist create these pictures for her, and they're in the pages of the book. Now, I read on a Kindle Paperwhite, so it was lost on me because you're not seeing all the color. But someone who reads on a Fire or a Nook color or something like that, or even in the paperback, I'm sure these are full of vibrant, beautiful color, and you're getting a little bit more. So, okay, this is where Auburn comes in, or so we think, because after only a few pages, you realize that Owen has a confession of his own, and he's keeping it to himself. He hires Auburn to help him out at the gallery for the night because his girlfriend has just broken up with him, and he needs someone to tally up what he makes in that night. But he knows Auburn. He knows Auburn from the past, and you're not going to find out how until almost the very end of the book. And when you find out, the way you felt in that prologue, crying, heart ripping out of your chest, you're feeling that way all over again. So what we usually do is we give our thoughts on the characters of the book. We have a couple of segments. Again, it won't be as fun without my gals, but I'll try to go through them for you to sell you on this book because you must read it. Okay, my thoughts on Auburn were I didn't quite connect with her the way I wanted to. But even though I still loved her because she is this person that is just so flawed. If you have a beating heart in your chest, you can't help but sympathize with her. The prologue shows how she lost her first true love at the age of 15 to cancer. And as she's losing him, someone tells her, "You're 15, Auburn. You think what you feel for him is real, but you'll be over him in a month." I felt for her because everyone, even God, seemed to be against her. She's forced to say goodbye to her dying boyfriend, Adam, by his meddling and ill-mannered family. And when you learn about her circumstances in the present, you want to reach out and hug her. I met my own husband when I was 15, and I remember the cards just being against us. Like, you can't love somebody at 15. You don't know what real love is. And 21 years later, we're still together, married with 2 kids, a house. My pooch, who's I think sitting over here and listening to me. And so I understood her from page 1. But it's really not until you get to the nitty-gritty of who she is in the present that you're like, wow, this poor girl. And then in walks Owen. So, okay, Owen, OMG. First introduction. My name is Owen Gentry. I'm an artist, and this is my studio. I have a showing in less than an hour, and I need someone to handle all the transactions, and my girlfriend broke up with me last week. Way to introduce yourself, Owen. The opener spoke volumes, and it would have had me running if I were Auburn. But the curious part of her sticks around, and how can you not? You find out that A, he takes people's deepest, darkest secrets and turns them into art. B, he has a girl cat named after himself. And C, his middle name is the same as Auburn's. And this is the interaction that goes on. We have the same middle name. Maybe you were just in the right place at the right time. And then later on, Owen says something like, right under his breath, that Auburn can hear, but doesn't, make light of until later on. Are you here to save me? I'll be honest. Owen didn't win me over as book boyfriend material right away. But in pure Coho fashion, she weaves, we know how she is. She weaves this quirky uniqueness into her characters that just keeps you fascinated. And the instant attraction, the I just can't seem to stay away from you, and then the untold secret about how he knows Auburn and her dead boyfriend's brother from the past. How do you not want to read about him? I loved his mystery. I loved that there was something he was hiding and holding back. And he had misgivings. He was screwed up. He had... he wanted to learn about Auburn, even though she had baggage, which you'll learn about. And he just, I don't know, by the end of this, I had a place in my heart for him. I really believed in him, again, just like a whole, just how Colleen Hoover does. Did I fall for him the way I fell for, let's say, Dean Holder? Probably not. To me, that was like instant, oh my God, book boyfriend, who doesn't want to marry Dean Holder? But that being said, there's plenty about Owen that makes you root for him, and it makes you root for him and Auburn to have this connection. So let's go into the moment I fell in love with Owen, because like I said, it was a little bit of a hard sell for me. It was a hard connection at first. I don't know why, but even so, I did fall for him. His humor won me over. And then as the story progresses, his protectiveness that he feels over Auburn for some reason made me love him. You don't know why he has this protection for her, this connection from the past, but he does. And this quote that he says just really made me understand, the type of person he was. Selflessness. It should be the basis of every relationship. If a person truly cares about you, they'll get more pleasure from the way you feel rather than the way you make them feel. I mean, what woman doesn't want her guy to feel that way? To feel selflessly in love with her, to want to take joy out of the pleasure that he gives her, not only sexually, but your girl has a smile on her face, and that's making you happy. So that part of Owen really, made me fall for him. In the beginning, you're thinking he's this cocky guy, this artist. We all know how artists are, and he wasn't that at all. He really wasn't. He had this secret that he was holding, and it's worth it. Swoon-worthy moment. If I'm not, I'm not being fair by picking this particular part as my moment, but I'm going to go with the epilogue, because it's not really an epilogue. Again, Colleen just does things differently. It's Owen's 5 years earlier. So you're reading the book, you get Auburn's 5 years earlier prologue. The book is then set 5 years in the past, and you get point of view between, back and forth between Auburn and Owen. And then the story gets summed up. You think so. And then you're 5 years later into Owen's 5 years earlier. I know it sounds confusing, but if you have not been convinced to read about this book yet, be done for it 93%. You will be like, holy crap. The last 7% of this book, I just couldn't breathe. I was clutching my heart, trying not to cry. My 5-year-old was sitting next to me and watching me read, and I'm like, no, just give me 5 more minutes. And this was just, it was book hangover for me. It was hard. I had to read another book for our March Madness, and I was stuck on Owen. And I think the most swoon-worthy thing that he says in this little chapter of 5 years earlier is, I'm pretty sure, actually, I'm not going to even give it away. Owen doesn't say this, someone else does. But this line just summed up the whole book for me. And it's, I'm pretty sure she's your fate, not mine. So if that doesn't leave you dangling, I mean, come on, this is Coho. You can't go wrong with her. So you have to read it. You just have to. You have to fall in love with Owen the way I did. Okay, we do a little segment that we like to bring you guys because we're authors. I'm Faith Andrews. Hi, I write contemporary romance. So when we read these books, not only are we reading for the pure joy of reading, but I mean, it's like inspiration. What artist doesn't take inspiration, aka Owen, from the craziest things? Us writers like to take inspiration from what we're reading. And there's always that line when you're reading a book that you're like, damn it, I wish I wrote that. In my instance, every time I read a Colleen Hoover book, I want to set fire to every single one of my manuscripts. She has a way of telling a story and creating this world that I feel no one else in the industry can do. So to me, hands down, I'm like one of those sheep that flock for the rest of the cohorts when it comes to her. I mean, I'll do anything. I'll read anything she writes. So I wish I wrote Hopeless. I wish I wrote Losing Hope. I wish I wrote Slammed. I wish I wrote Point of Retreat. I wish I wrote This Girl. Maybe someday, maybe not, Finding Cinderella, Ugly Love. And now I wish I wrote Confess. But for this one book, I'm going to go with this line because I just thought it was just perfect. There are people you meet that you get to know, and there are people you meet that you already know. And yes, in this case, there's a lot behind that sentence. But in life, it's just that clicking moment, that moment that you click with somebody. And this is, I feel like, what she's talking about. Sometimes you already know that person because you're already meant to be, whether it's a friend, a coworker, your husband, your wife, your future spouse, whatever it is. I just felt like that spoke volumes. And again, for me, she's short and sweet. She's to the point. There's no extra verbiage, unnecessary descriptors. If you want poetry, don't read Colleen Hoover. I don't think she writes poetry. But even though there's nothing fancy about the way she writes, that's why it's genius for me, because she uses real words, she uses concise sentences to make you feel like you're right there living in that book. And to me, that quote, there are people you meet that you get to know, and there are people you meet that you already know, it totally sums it up for me. That being said, I know we usually have a couple of other segments that we do together. Without the banter, it's kind of not fun. So casting. I am having a really hard time casting Owen Gentry. I don't know why. I just don't have this clear visual of him. I picture him, he's young, obviously in his 20s, but someone had posted a picture of Ryan Gosling. I kind of see him that way, maybe a little younger. But I don't know. I think he's a mixture. I think he's who you see as your artisty dream guy. I don't know. I'm gonna say he's a mixture of Ryan Gosling, maybe a little bit of Scott Eastwood, but I can't pinpoint him. I'm sorry, guys. I'm disappointing you, but I just can't do it. That being said, my segment of this is done, and I'm like hallelujahing here because this was not easy doing it without my girls. And I hope I've convinced you to read Confess and to give Owen Gentry, or OMG, from this book a chance. I love him. I'm sure you guys do. So if you want to chat it up with me, feel free to send us a message through Book Boyfriend Podcast. If you have any suggestions for us in the future, feel free to head over to www.bookboyfriendpodcast.com. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, on iTunes, and just, follow us. Make sure you're giving us all you got. We are always up for suggestions. This is about, we're not reviewers. Remember that. We are not a blog. We're not reviewers. We're 4 authors who love to read. We like to keep in the know and, to what's going on. What do you guys think is great? So if you have any suggestions for us for what you think we should read next, let us know. And until then, bye-bye and stay in touch.
Thanks for joining us. You can find out who will be on upcoming shows and what books we'll be discussing, as well as more about our hosts at www.bookboyfriendpodcast.com. See you next time when we add another boyfriend to the ranks.